going on, everyone? I am replacing today the sensor pads for the left and right triggers. That'd be L1, R1, L1, and L2. I was running into issues with games like Grand Theft Auto Online, Grand Theft Auto 5, where the guns were having a real hard time firing. So, didn't see it in all games. But for example, with Grand Theft Auto, I was not getting 100% trigger application on the right trigger. So what I found out the cause of that is the silicone pads on the inside end up getting some indentions in them and don't fully compress. So I opted to purchase the pads for $5 rather than buy, a $50 controller to replace it. So just going to highlight those. I have nothing wrong with any of the buttons, the D-pad. Joystick's a little worn out, but I chose not to replace that, so I'm replacing nothing on the front and only doing the triggers. I figured, they're not broken, why fix it? First off, just full disclaimer, I am not a professional electrician or computer repair person or anything along those lines. I'm a very average gamer who just happens to like to save money and tinker with stuff, work on stuff myself. So take that advice as you wish. This video is meant to help you and kind of show you what to do if you choose to do this, but keep in mind, these are, plastic electronics and, pretty easy to break if you're, being a little too reckless. But anyway, you will need the pad kit. I'll put the link in Amazon below. It's $5 and change for that. Comes with all the pads. Like I said, I'm only using the trigger pads, but comes with everything. Then I chose to buy the trigger replacements with the springs. I don't think I need these, but just in case I lose a spring or something like that, I've got these. I'll put both of these links down below. You'll also need some kind of small screwdriver set, or just a small Phillips screwdriver to be able to open the screws in the back. Can't do it with a normal size one. You will need something small to get into those. So let's go ahead and we'll just get started with this process. You'll want some kind of plastic tool, some kind of plastic straight edge to kind of pry the controller apart. You don't want to use a metal screwdriver. I've got this little tool that came in my screwdriver kit that I'm using, but you will need something to apply pressure to the controller to split the case. So you've got 4 screws. You'll start with the 4 screws on the back. Make sure you're keeping track of the parts. They are small, so just make sure you've got, a little container, a little something to put screws in and whatnot. I also haven't upgraded to a PS5, so my main reason in wanting to do this is I'm not putting, any more money into my PlayStation 4 until I, put money towards a PS5. All right, so the screws are out. There's a very good chance that, if you have an original controller from 2013, that you're gonna have a hard time getting that apart right away, but it does separate right along where you can see, the black base and then the camo. So that's where you're going to see it separate. So I'm going to take my straight edge and just kind of work that in here. You do have to be a little forceful, and it's oh, there we go. One side, see that one side just popped open. So I want to work the other side as well. Go, that side's out. There's two little clips right in here that they kind of, the top piece locks into the bottom piece. Not sure the best way to go about getting those undone without risk of breaking, but I found just kind of pry. See all that popping. And there we go. A little more force than I probably would have liked to use. but we're apart. And you can see what I'm talking about there with those clips. But there you go. All right, so now we've got the controller in half. I'm going to disconnect the battery, remove that. And then I'm also gonna disconnect the two halves. There's just a ribbon that goes right in here. So you just just grab it firmly right at the base and pull, and it'll come right out. And just kind of note which way the connectors are on the ribbon when you go to reinsert. You can see that those are facing towards the battery. All right, so I've got that side off. You can see it actually pulled one of the triggers out right there. So that's fine. Just make sure you note which one and make sure you've got those springs. So, all right. So next step, you can see I've got this apart. I'm not, like I said, I'm not replacing the joysticks or anything else. So this tray is going to remain intact. If you choose to replace the other pads, you are going to remove that tray and that circuit board so you can get to the other pads. You can see right here, our next step for replacing these pads is to remove the triggers. So I'm just gonna start on this one since it's already came out, at least half of it did. So we've got the L2 part out and we need to get the L1 part removed. So I'm gonna switch, I'm gonna get just a little flathead. If you got a little flathead screwdriver, that's perfect for right here. And you're gonna look and you can see that there are these little clips right here. There's two little clips that keep this attached and it pulls straight out. All right, so I'm gonna very gently just kind of put my screwdriver on that and pry that clip out and then pry that clip out. And then it comes right out. You don't need any, force on that and risk breaking the triggers. It's also a reason why I bought the new, the new triggers just in case something happened. But right here, here's my problem. You see the indentation right there? That was preventing the trigger from applying 100% pressure. And in GTA, like I said, in Grand Theft Auto Online, I'd sit there and push the trigger, but it just wouldn't fire. I'd really have to hammer on it or reapply pressure multiple times to be able to fire. It was kind of at a distinct disadvantage there. All right. So once you've got both sets of triggers out, all you got to do is, gently kind of lift up and it comes out. You see it's got two little prongs right there that go in the center, and we're just going to put that to the side and we'll not be using that anymore. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing to the other side, and then we'll install them together. So triggers, just all they do is just pull out, just a little bit of pressure on them. You can see I've got the spring right there. Note that the spring does go on the inside. We'll kind of go over putting those back in here at the end. I'm going to set my triggers to the side, and I'm going to do the same thing here with the R1 button. So a little bit of pressure on the clip, and there it comes. And you can see even the R1's even worse as far as the indentation right there that was preventing me from having the trigger apply completely. All right, so I've got those out, and it's time to get our new pads out of our kit. All right, so I've got the new pads. You can see the difference here between the two, and that should solve our trigger issues. All right, so new pad. A couple different ways you could go about this. You can try to slide it in under the little lip, but keep in mind you've got those little prongs that need to go. Oh, I'm not on camera, sorry. Those little prongs on the bottom that need to fully seat in order for the pad to be flush. I found kind of the easiest way here is to just go from the top and press everything in. So you can see I've got the prongs fully seated in the holes. This comes down and clips on the outside, but then you need to make sure that everything else is pressed in all around and fully seated. I'm pleased with that. It's fully seated all around. This lip is in. So now I can go ahead and put, what is this, L1? I can go ahead and put the L1 button back in to hold it in place. You can see I've got rebound on that. And then I can take my L2 trigger, which I actually do need the spring here. All right, I can take my L2 trigger. Right here, the spring needs to go on the inside. Spring needs to go on the inside post. Then there's a little slot. You can see the slot right there that the spring seats in. So I'm going to want to make sure that my spring is seated in there while I'm applying the pressure to the controller, to the trigger, to put it in place. Just double checking a couple things. Springs are the most finicky part of this whole process. I'm sure somebody else has a little hint on how to keep them in place. That would be great to share. It takes a little bit of finesse to make sure those are placed correctly. There we go. All right. And now we will go ahead and put the pad on the right trigger in. You just apply a little bit of pressure to the top on the post, make sure those are in, and then fully seat the pad on the top. Make sure your lip is down, the little cover right there is down, and just kind of go around and just make sure it's fully seated. Doesn't take a ton of pressure, just a little bit. All right, we're gonna put our R1 button back in. Good to go there. We'll take our controller, or excuse me, our trigger. Put the spring back in. Make sure the spring is in the little notch. And apply that. And there you go. Good to go. Okay, so I've got those back in. I've replaced the pads. That was my main issue that I was going for here. And then I'm going to reassemble the controller. So I've got the battery right here. You can see you kind of got this little clip that the wires can go underneath. Kind of keep them in place. Better yet, I believe it goes that way. And just make sure you're looking that your connectors are in the correct way. Press that in. You see I got the wire running under the clip, just like that. All right. So now we want to put the back base back on. Make sure you note the direction of the ribbon connector when connecting. Make sure that is fully seated. All right, my ribbon connector is back in. Then I found, you look here, you've got the controllers and you need to kind of get them back in. So you just want to kind of decompress the triggers a little bit and work the top half on first. All right, you can see I've got those placed where they need to be. And then I want to come back to the front, and your posts, these might have gotten hung up. You just want to kind of press them back in. Now I'm going to come back there and I'm just going to gently work around the edges and seat the controller. All right. Got my triggers in, good to go. And now I just need to put the screws back in. So it's that easy, guys. So I'm gonna put these screws back in, tighten that back up, and now I should have full use of my triggers when playing various games. Like I said, Grand Theft Auto was my big one. So now I should have no issues with the gun firing immediately when the trigger's pressed. So appreciate the view, guys. Hope this helped you out. If you got any hints, any helpful advice, share that in the comments. As I said before, and full disclaimer, I am not a professional, so I'm just the average gamer doing this to try to, save a few dollars. But appreciate it, guys. Leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe. Greatly appreciated. You guys have a good one.